Here in 2020, I think we've all had more time than we thought to watch a lot of shows. And usually in a normal year, I do watch at least a few new series a year, and they're going to be new to me. And throughout this whole list, we're going to talk about shows that were new to me, and we're also going to talk about some seasons that were new to me too. So spoilers could be ahead for certain shows that I talk about. There's no real particular order I'm going to go in, but I just want to kind of go over and talk about some shows that I really enjoyed watching here in 2020. And like I said, it could be from start to finish of a show, it could be start to end date, and there's gonna be more seasons to come, or it could be the final season of a show, like say Supernatural, or the most current season of a show like The Walking Dead, for example. So right off the bat, I think the best show that I watched in 2020 was NCIS. Now, I never thought I would ever utter those words, but I gave it a shot back in like March or April, somewhere around there, because what else are you going to watch when, everything was pretty much just on lockdown? And I loved NCIS. I think it is a really, really good show, especially the first 10 to 13 seasons, which I know that sounds like just an abundance of seasons, but there's certain arcs and stuff that go on in those first 10, 13 seasons that are honestly great television, and I enjoyed every second of it. Yes, NCIS has a new season 18. It just started a few weeks ago, but I watched 1 through 17 in a matter of like 4 months, which is kind of nuts. But again, what else are you doing through all these 2020 days that we have? So NCIS is probably at the top of my list. I really, really, really did enjoy that show, and I would definitely recommend watching it. Now, probably second on that list is probably Peaky Blinders. I finally bit the bullet and started watching this show. I've heard nothing but great things about this show. I've even done a whole review on it. I also did a whole review on NCIS also, so make sure you go check out those reviews. So getting back to Peaky Blinders, it is a really well done show. I love the style of the show, the music that they use, the acting is just impeccable. It is honestly one of the best shows you can watch on Netflix right now. It is that good. It probably rivals The Sopranos and Boardwalk Empire. I don't know if it beats either of those, but it's definitely in the same conversation. Now, probably the third-ish favorite show that I watched during 2020 was all of True Blood. Now, I finally bit the bullet on this one too. True Blood's been over for around 6 years. It's an older show, I guess you can call it nowadays. I think it started back in 07, 08, somewhere in there. And the first few seasons of True Blood are honestly really good. I see why it was so popular back in the day. But the last few seasons, I gotta admit, I did not love. And it wasn't like it was a struggle for me to watch. I just didn't care for the certain directions they went into in the last few seasons. And that's coming from just a person who watched the show, not even anyone that read the book. And I really feel bad for people that read the book, because I heard the book ended badly and the show didn't end the best. Like, it was fine, but just the last few seasons, it felt like they had no real sense of direction. Where the first few they really did, it was a lot more grounded, and it felt like a really good show, and I did enjoy watching it. It's definitely a show that would have frustrated me if I had to watch it week to week, year to year. I'm really glad I just waited it out, was able to binge it all, and it was satisfying enough. A show that caught me by surprise that I didn't know how good it would be or how bad it would be was Dave. It was season 1 of Dave. It's about Little Dicky, and he's a rapper. If you don't know, he's like a parody rapper, satirical rapper. And this show is actually really funny, and I really did enjoy it. I think there's only like 8-10 episodes, something like that in season 1. There's no season 2 yet. There's probably not going to be a season 2 for a long time. But season 1 of Dave was honestly really enjoyable. It was pretty funny, and I enjoyed watching it. It's a 30-minute show, so it's not that hard to watch. And it had a lot of funny moments, and it's an FX show, so, they can kind of push the envelope a little bit, and it was really good. I really did enjoy watching that. So if you're looking for a comedy, I would definitely say Dave is a good option. I think it's on Hulu. That's where I watched it. Yeah, I would suggest Dave. Dave's a really funny show. Now, another show that I watched here in 2020 was season 3 of Stranger Things. I gotta be honest, I have a very love-hate relationship with Stranger Things. I know there's people that just rave about this show, especially like back in season 1. People were calling this like the best show ever, yada yada. It's just like the best thing ever to touch Netflix or ever that they've ever watched. I gotta disagree. I thought season 1 was fun. It was a nice little journey. I like all the nostalgia. Season 2, I honestly really, really disliked. I didn't like the direction they were going into. I just didn't like season 2 at all. Now, getting into season 3, that's the season that I watched here in 2020. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a lot more similar to season 1, just a little more heightened, which of course the show has to naturally progress and kind of grow, so I get it. But I really did enjoy season 3. I liked how the characters kind of grew in a more normal manner, I guess you can say, compared to what it felt like season 2. So I did enjoy season 3. I think it's a fun little show. I wouldn't put it in my top probably even 20 shows that I've ever watched, but I think it's a fun show and it's worth whatever, the 8 hours to watch it. I think it's fun. Another thing that I started at the end of 2019 and I ended up finishing up in 2020 was Star Trek the original series. And I gotta say, Star Trek the original series has some great episodes and it has some not so great episodes. I actually did a whole review on Star Trek the original series also. That will be linked in a card up above or down below or in a playlist. It's somewhere. I'll link it somewhere. The original series, it's very episodic. It's not a serialized storytelling. And if you ever watch that review, I say canonized storytelling, which I was misspoken. It's serialized storytelling, so it has a little bit more connectiveness to it. Not episodics, more just like new problems arise week to week and things get resolved by the end of the episode. I just misspoke in that last video. But Star Trek the original series, really enjoyed it. It's definitely a bit dated, but you know what? It's Star Trek. I still enjoy it. I still love it. So I definitely would recommend that Star Trek show to someone if you are already a fan of Star Trek and have not yet watched it. I definitely wouldn't tell people to watch that first. I always say watch TNG, DS9, Voyager, and then probably go back to TOS and then watch Enterprise. That way, if you're a fan of it, you kind of get what's going on, because if you just jump into the original series first, in a modern audience, you probably would get a little bored with it and it could get a little hokey. You know, it's a little cheesy. It was made in the late 60s. Like, what do you expect? Like, it's fun when you kind of know what you're getting. But if you really want to get someone into Star Trek, have them watch The Next Generation and then DS9. Those two shows are just great. And Voyager gets way too much flack. I love Voyager. I did a whole review of Voyager also. And TNG. Did a lot of reviews on these shows. I actually never did one on DS9, which is honestly probably a little too late at this point. I remember a lot of it, but probably not enough to do more of a deep dive review like I like to do. So I missed the ball on that one. That's my bad. And it's my favorite Star Trek show. I mean, come on. That's my bad. And I have to say an honorable mention for my least favorite show I watched in 2020, a show that I went into that I thought I actually might like and kind of enjoy for various reasons. But my God, did I hate Lucifer. Lucifer on Netflix is one of the worst shows I've ever watched. I freaking hated this show. I could not stand it. I hate watched it all the way through to whatever the current season was at the time in like March or April. I hated it so much. It was like 3 seasons. It was like 60 episodes worth of just crap. I couldn't stand it. It just hated it. I just hate watched it because I was already like so invested, so deep into it. Ugh. It is just so drawn out. There's no payoff ever. There's no payoff in that show, and I can't stand it. I truly cannot stand that show. I do not recommend that show to anyone, even if you're a Supernatural fan. To me, it is just awful. Do not watch it. Now, getting into just some of the one-off seasons that I watched here in 2020, I have to, of course, talk about The Walking Dead and Supernatural Season 15. So The Walking Dead finished up Season 10, even though they're technically getting 6 more episodes due to the whole pandemic. So it's just this whole weird ordeal. So I'm still going to count The Walking Dead Season 10 ending here in 2020, and it was a solid season. I thought Season 9 was a lot better, but 10 was a good continuation of 9. And I'm interested to see what they do with the 6 more addition episodes and what they're going to do going into the final season, which is season 11. So that's going to be kind of crazy. And then speaking of final seasons, Supernatural ended. Yeah, Supernatural ended season 15. And, you know, I did a whole review of this one too. Overall, Supernatural is one of my favorite shows. That's never going to change. I had issues with some of the endings of some of the characters and the ending kind of in whole. But you know what? I blame more of what was going on in 2020 with the pandemic and stuff more than the show itself. So it is what it is. It was a good enough ending. At least it has an ending, unlike some shows that I've watched, like My Name is Earl. Like that poor show, good comedy show, never got an ending. So at least it had an ending and somewhat of an ending that I wanted it to be. It just wasn't as tight and crisp as I wanted it to be, but you know, you don't get everything you want, and I'm just glad we got as many seasons as we did as Supernatural. So definitely recommend Supernatural. If you have never watched Supernatural, you're in for a real treat. Go watch Supernatural. The first 5 seasons are honestly some of the best television you can watch, and I don't say that lightly. It is awesome. After season 5, there's some really great seasons, there's some really meh seasons, and there's everything kind of in between. So just know that, expect that. But at that point, you're so invested into the characters that you like, you really don't care about the clunkers. It's kind of like Star Trek. There's some great ones, and there's some real clunkers, but you still love the characters in the show, so you just kind of put up with it. It just is what it is. When you have to write for like 23 to 26 episodes, comparing to like Star Trek and Supernatural almost every single season, I get it. There's some bad episodes in there. It'd be hard to write that many episodes every single season. Now, real quick, I want to touch on some documentaries that I watched this year. I'm going to mention 2 documentaries that you should probably check out. They're actually really good. A whole documentary about Ulysses S. Grant, which was a former president of the United States, and he's a general in the Civil War, and so on and so forth. It was just real interesting to learn about his life. I believe it was a History Channel documentary, and it was really good. That's all I'll say. It was just really good. It was very informational. It was a fun watch, and I learned a lot more about Grant than I ever knew before, so it was definitely worth the watch. And then if you're more of a sports fan, The Last Dance, the whole thing about the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan and stuff in the 90s, was just an awesome documentary. Was it a little dragged out? I think it was a little bit. I think it was like 10 episodes. It didn't probably need to be 10, but it was still a really good watch. I think it's on Netflix now, so if you have Netflix, I would definitely recommend checking it out. It was definitely a good watch here in 2020. And I think that is about it when it comes to TV shows that I watched in 2020. Ones that I loved, ones that I really disliked, like Lucifer, some finishing of seasons that I've watched, and some documentaries. Oh, another documentary I have to mention real quick is What We Left Behind. It's actually a documentary about Deep Space Nine. If you're a Star Trek, Deep Space Nine fan, watch it. It is an amazing documentary about that awesome show, but you got to be a Star Trek fan. So if you are, check it out. It is seriously awesome. But yeah, I think that is kind of my list. There's no real in particular order. I definitely put NCIS at the top, and then everything else is kind of there. Peaky Blinders is probably 2, and True Blood's probably 3, and everything else is kind of just after that. I have still yet to watch Mandalorian Season 2 and The Boys Season 2, so I can't put those on my list quite yet, so hopefully I'll be watching those here sooner than later, but nonetheless, I'll get around to them. And quickly to mention too, Discovery Season 3 is out, and I have yet to watch all of that to the current point, so I can't really talk about it. Who knows? And Picard Season 1 came out in 2020, believe it or not. It came out in January. I enjoyed moments of it, but I don't think it surpassed any of the main 3 that I mentioned. And it's just a 1 season off as of right now. There's supposed to be a Season 2, so I don't really want to put it in the conversation yet, because I feel like I'd kind of bag it a little bit more than I want to, because I do want to like it. So I kind of want to see the show breathe a little bit and grow going into Season 2, because Season 1 had its good moments, but overall I just didn't love the story. So I'm not gonna trash talk it too much. And it was this Season 1, and it came out like in January, so it counts obviously, but we're not gonna count it as of right now, if you know what I mean. So hopefully that show kind of grows if it gets a Season 2. It's supposed to, but you know, with all this craziness going on, who knows. So yeah, wrap this whole thing up. That's my list. Let me know down below in the comment section, what are some of your favorite shows that you watched in 2020? Have you watched any of the shows that I mentioned? Let me know down below. And while you're down there, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, everyone have a great day. Thanks for watching.